Won't you come in? Welcome to your first New York episode of From the Mind of Christine McConnell. We just moved into this unbelievable Italianate mansion about 2 weeks ago. She's been sleeping for about 20 years and it took us a moment to wake her back up, but we're about to do an incredible tour of her interiors. I have two objectives with this. The first is to reveal the incredible history that has just been waiting to be discovered inside the drawers and the cabinetry. And the second is to avoid setting my hair on fire with these candles. One of the first things that struck me when I walked into this house for the first time was the scale of the rooms. I didn't quite understand just from looking at pictures just what a 12 or 13 foot ceiling felt like when you're standing in it. And it's very immersive and kind of gothic and amazing. Here's the floral arrangement that I did in the live stream. I've tweaked it a little bit since, and I probably will continue tweaking it. I just feel like a big, glamorous floral display when you first walk into a house is so welcoming and pretty. So I think I'm probably going to start constructing more for the different rooms and the different vignettes that I'll be creating. Something that I've really enjoyed bringing from home are all of my antique clocks. Because of the size of the rooms, in the California house, when they chimed, it sounded powerful, but in this house, the sound gets kind of lost. And I've splurged a little bit on a really elaborate grandfather clock, which should be coming next week. And I'm so excited to hear the deep chime from that thing sort of resounding through the house. Something I've also really enjoyed doing is hanging all of my special pieces of art and things that mean the most to me sort of throughout the house and kind of blending them in with the things that were already here. And now we're going to go through to the smoking room. This was at one time the gentleman's room, and I've kind of converted it into just a basic sitting room. There is, however, one grand piece of furniture, which is this beautiful organ. This was actually in my childhood home, and it's something I always think of my parents when I think of it. It was my great-grandmother's, given to her by her mother, which would be my great-great-grandmother, right at the turn of the century when it was brand new. And it works perfectly, and luckily, my captive is very good at playing it, which I will definitely be demonstrating later in the episode. Now let's go through to the drawing room. This is easily the most stunning room in the house, starting with this chandelier. This was imported from Austria when the house was originally commissioned. I don't know how, but not a single thing is missing or broken on it. It was originally gas and then at some point was converted to electric, and every single lighting fixture in the house pales in comparison to this. I have a million plans for this house, and one of them is going to be trying to find things I'm never going to find something as grand as this, but kind of close, and peppering them through the rest of the house just to kind of balance out this level of grandeur. There is a ghost story associated with this beautiful mirror. There is another mirror across the way in the library, and their reflections bounce back, and allegedly, at a certain time of day, you can see strange reflections going back and forth between the two rooms. I would love to find a beautiful Gothic grand piano to place right here, because I would also love to have incredible parties, Christmas and Halloween in this house, and how appropriate to have someone playing something fun and spooky on an old grand piano. This library was an absolute treasure trove of history on the house. The drawers are all filled with incredible photographs, documents, letters, going back to the original family that had this house built. And I was able to kind of piece together the history of who has lived here for how long and how many times this house has changed hands. The house was originally commissioned by Thomas Richardson. He was an English lawyer who came to the United States in the mid-1800s. He then met Harriet Digert and then shortly after married her. Not terribly long after being married and having several children, this house was finished and they moved here, raising all 4 of their children within its walls. Arleigh Richardson was their only son. He married, had 2 children, and became a district attorney. Their second daughter, Jenny Richardson, was one of the first female doctors in the entire county. Their first daughter, Carrie Richardson, was a very accomplished artist, musician, and teacher. The baby, Lillian Richardson, married in 1899. Together, the 6-member family had many happy years in this house. Sadly, Thomas Richardson died on his 70th birthday in his home in the year 1900. Just a year after losing her father, their youngest child, Lillian Shepherd, barely married several years and having just given birth to a son, lost her 32-year-old husband, Dr. Lucian Shepherd, to typhoid fever. After which, she moved back to the family home to raise her son with her 2 sisters and her mother. According to the letters I found, young Tom Shepherd loved cats and despised hunting. He spent nearly his entire life in this house, initially being raised by his mother and 2 aunts, and ultimately marrying and raising his own 2 children in this house. Around Christmas in 1962, someone must have been gifted a camera, at which point they went through the house and photographed the interiors at the time. At the age of 84, after having lived what must have been enough of his life in this house, Thomas Shepherd decided to sell the house to Robert and Elvira Ann Dreisler. They set about restoring what at that time had become a decrepit old mansion, preparing to open it to the public as a bed and breakfast. They shared Tom's passion for cats and became cherished members of the local community. In 2001, they sold the house to a mysterious gentleman who decided not to live here, but to maintain the house to be enjoyed by a future generation. He sold it to us in the summer of 2020. Now let's go through to the solarium. Calling this a solarium is a touch of a stretch. It's really just a glassed-in porch, but I love the word and I'm working with what I have. If you ever go to the North Carolina house, the Biltmore Mansion, they have a solarium. But I can work with this, and I'm going to have beautiful hanging plants, probably all fake, in this house. And I would really, really love to get into stained glass making. And I feel like there is a real opportunity here to not only learn how to do that, but also implement it in a really old Gothic kind of way. Let's go into the dining room. I have wanted a really astonishing dining room like this forever. Obviously, so much of the artistry and work I've done has revolved around food, and I've never had such an incredible place to display it before. And I can't really imagine asking for anything better than this. So Of the millions of ideas I have for this room, one of them is going to be creating my own china completely from scratch with a kiln here in this house. I have this idea for making a full service and having it on display here for guests when they come to dine or die. I'm going to be honest with you, of all the places in this house, this is the scariest to me. This is actually the second time I have filmed this tour, and the first time I filmed it with all of the lights off in here. And I was like, I don't think I'm doing that again. So for this one, we are keeping all of the lights on. I have a bunch of fun ideas for this dark and dank, creepy place. Some of the rooms obviously will have to be kept just for use as utility, but I also have kind of a really fun fantasy to turn certain areas into like a Tales from the Crypt, witch's lair type place. It's really just room after room. Right through here, there's old wood and lumber. Some of these are decorative pieces that used to adorn the outside of the house and which are still here completely intact. I'm probably going to have to use several of them as templates to recreate some of the details that have since gone missing from the exterior of the house. One of the fun things in this room are all of the old mason jars and bottles. And yes, it's very scary down here. They used to store coal in this room, and I feel like somewhere down here is the perfect spot for maybe a cauldron or a child-size oven. Down here is an old workroom filled with all sorts of old tools and odds and ends. Something I've discovered in this house that I'm very, very excited about are voids or dead spots I've uncovered, and I have yet to thoroughly investigate, but there are some places in here for trapdoors, secret passageways, and hidden rooms. Let's go upstairs. here are those incredible portraits of the original owners of the house. I can't believe they are still here in the house, and they will always be here as far as I'm concerned. One of the things that I'm trying to be mindful of with this house is it has been here since 1866. It has so much history and so much has been preserved about it. And I am really just one of the stewards of this property. And I plan to do incredibly beautiful, glamorous things to it. But at the same time, I do want to respect the history that has survived this long. And I won't be doing anything to take away from that. So now we're going to go into what was the morning room. This is where people would sort of spend their time waking up together and talking and reading newspapers in the morning. Something that I found in one of the old letters in the drawers is that when seamstresses would come from out of town, the ladies of the house would actually come in here. They would close the drapes that used to be here, and they would have their clothes fitted and prepared in this room. You might also recognize my couch that I managed to bring along. The movers did damage it a little bit, but nothing that I can't fix. And I'm actually so excited for you to see it at some point in the daylight, because when the sun comes shining through, you can so clearly get the silhouette of those snakes. This was at one time called the summer room. In my mind, the bedrooms in this house need the most as far as a makeover goes. I really want grand 4-poster canopy beds in all of these rooms that people sleep, hidden televisions because everybody wants to watch the Golden Girls as they're drifting off, and even the floors. Right now, they're all just subflooring, which is pine, which is fine. It looks very pretty, but I really want to get into learning how to do inlaid hardwood floors, and these seem like a prime opportunity to practice and figure it out. Like I mentioned, all of the trunks and cupboards are filled with antiques, and this is one of them. Here is a capelet, definitely from the 1800s. There isn't any identifying information on it, so I can only guess as to whose it was. But this is filled with old furs and hats and all sorts of fun things. I won't be using any of the furs, but there's no harm in just leaving them alone in there. The amount of history that has been preserved in here is really remarkable. These are some decrepit old feather hats. And like I mentioned, all of the drawers are filled with old clothes, sheet music, scarves, and written notes. It's especially considering the fact that this house was run as a bed and breakfast. The fact that so many things have been maintained is very, very strange and surreal. So the Richardsons' eldest daughter, Carrie, was an artist and a musician, and she actually hand painted the mural that is at the top of this room. It is so beautiful. I can't believe how detailed and kind of just stunning it is. I do have plans to paint this lower part, which has been painted, but I will be doing something in here that really complements what that looks like. This is actually going to be my mom's room when she comes and stays, and no one else will stay here. It'll just be for her. And I think we're going to design what it's going to look like together. Something else that I found in this room is this incredible trunk. So in this chest and in this trunk, I discovered basically a treasure trove of the original family's Victorian lace. And there's stuff in here from like mourning lace to wedding lace, a gift to the original lady of the house, and even an envelope with a lock of her hair enclosed. Under normal circumstances, I would be very tempted to use some of this unused lace in a project, but because it did belong to the original family and it has historic significance, it just feels inappropriate to use any of this, but I will leave it in here fully intact for future generations to enjoy. And I'll peek in here every now and again just to sort of gain some inspiration for how things used to be done. So sandwiched between the maid's quarters and the bird room is this unbelievable bathroom. This was the first bathroom in the entire county when the house was built. It's imported Venetian tiles, completely original to the house. Nothing here, I don't believe, has been updated other than a shower that has been installed, which I actually think I'm going to be removing and restoring to its original state. I do want to have a professional plumber, somebody who specializes in antique plumbing, come in, remove that, and just kind of make sure everything's running as it should and mend anything that may need some patching. The ceiling is even tiled in these incredible Venetian tiles with these little medallions that are nailed in between each one, making sure not a single one falls from the ceiling. Down in the basement, there is actually a box filled with these tiles on the off chance that you do need to replace something, which is a very nice fallback to have. So this is the largest room in the attic, and it is humongous. There are so many treasures that have kind of been stuffed up here that I feel like are just waiting to be uncovered. Over here, there's tons of sheet music and letters, all from the 1800s. Old chairs, old beds, just kind of the remnants of past lives that have lived in this house. Something really neat that I'm planning for this particular space is because I do want this to be a livable space, but I don't want it to look too modernized. I do think ultimately I plan to have heating and air conditioning installed, and then instead of rafters as it is now, I think I want to have what will essentially look like hardwood flooring all over the walls and the ceilings, keeping it really sort of rustic and old, and then either make this an entertaining space, a crafting area. I'm not entirely sure which, but there's definitely enough room up here to do several different things, maybe a few extra bedrooms, who knows. This is not quite the highest point in the house. If you take that ladder straight up, it will lead to about a 12 or 15 foot tall belfry, which really honestly has enough room for a small sitting room up there. This is what they used to call the Widow's Walk. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with this room. I feel like, considering the age of the house and that, the occult used to be very popular and seances used to be pretty commonplace back in the Victorian era, this would be an amazing room for like seances, a crystal ball, something like that. Or maybe just a beautiful place to sit and watch the storms roll through. Some of the things that we uncovered almost felt like gifts from spirits who had eagerly been awaiting our arrival. hope you've enjoyed this tour. Thank you so much for coming along with me on this unbelievable adventure. It has been so exciting and fun to sort of spend the last couple weeks going through all these drawers and finding all this incredible history. I mentioned that I'll be doing a flashlight tour of the carriage house. Wait until you see. It's, I want to say, about 2 or 3 times the size of my California house. And there's something really fun and amazing hiding in there. So in the meantime, take care of yourselves. We're just about to be going into the Halloween season. So I have so many fun things planned for that. Stay tuned. I will see you very soon. I have yet to see any ghosts here, but if I do spot one, I'll be sure to tell you.